Out here. This is our annual meeting. Before we get started, I just want to make notice of some individuals who are sitting at the table, not board members. Understanding what the board is dealing with and whatnot. So I thought it'd be great to have them up here in front so you get to know them a little bit. Marty Hodgkins and Kara Blank. Okay.
Oh, starting off.
That concludes our meeting. There we go. All right. So, as we always do, we're going to start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. Our flag is over here, properly positioned according to Carl. So, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So, this morning is really kind of a yearly update. I'll look at what has happened in the past. And a lot of the comments reflect not only board activities, but the activities of our operations group, which has just been tremendous. Jim and I are going to do kind of a tag team approach to this. So we'll be moving around quite a bit, and we'll get into it that way. We're going to start out, as always, with financial matters. And so Jim is going to lead us in that.
All right, thank you, Jim. It's on. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out today. It's a good crowd. Appreciate that. So basically, we have a financial focus. We have a finance committee that works with the board and myself on helping make sure that we stay in great financial position. So we always try to manage the community in a fiscally prudent manner so that we can include sufficient reserves to care for what we own and what we plan to do in the future. We try to identify risk. This, as everyone knows, this year was pretty risky. We had lots of risk come up. But luckily, because of our insurance policies and our reserves, we've been able to quite easily handle the extra costs associated with the natural storms and disasters we had during the last 12 months. And we do all this obviously to maintain and enhance property values so that your homes stay worth more than hopefully more than what you purchased them for. And then we also recognize that we have a very diverse membership. We have people who just moved here, say, a month ago. We have people who lived here 20 years ago, and obviously there's some dichotomy difference between each one of those residents. And then we want to make sure that each year we reasonably estimate our reserve for our capital items. We have about, I think it's over 300, I don't know if anyone in the finance committee, but over 320, I think, items within our capital reserve, which basically is any item that costs us more than $2,500 and has a useful life of less than 30 years. And we capitalize those items to make sure that when they need to be replaced, we have the funds appropriate to replace them in the future. So year to date, interestingly enough, even with everything that's going on, we currently, these numbers are through June, so obviously today is only the 2nd of August, so we don't have our July numbers yet. But through June, we were $60,208 better than budget, with all departments pretty much contributing in some way. The only downside so far, and this is not unique to Condesi, is that the real estate market has slowed down nationally, and we're feeling that same impact here as well. So we've only had 29 units that have resold through June versus a target of 38. And at the same time last year, we had 47. So you can see that that's a pretty significant impact. The good news and bad news of that is it's bad news that we haven't been able to collect those amenity funds. The good news is that those funds aren't used to help us operate and keep the business running. Those funds are used to basically put in a pool to be able to use for future capital projects. So it impacts what you may be able to do next year or the year after, but it doesn't really impact the operations as a whole. So our reserve status, we have an out-year plan to replenish the emergency reserve. Right now it looks like, and I have a further slide, but I'll go ahead and show it here. We think we're going to be out of pocket somewhere between $350,000 and $450,000 from mostly from Helene related, that we're not covered by our insurance and or the deductibles. Or the biggest contributor to that is almost $200,000 of that is related to storm debris cleanup, because insurance does not cover debris cleanup. We spent a little over $200,000 just doing that. To give you some idea, we stopped counting at like 3,000. So when we were counting for a while, we got over 3,000 trees that were down along our 55 miles roadway. So there was still a few more, but at 3,000 we just quit counting. There's probably 100 more or whatever, but there was a lot of trees, I can tell you that. And it was pretty crazy. So right now in our reserve, you'll see that as of 1/1/25, we had a budget of $6 million in our reserve, and we actually have $6,041,000. Through the end of June, we had a budget of $7,564,000, and we have now a total of $7,335,000. So we're still in good shape on our reserve funding. We also have an investment policy that was approved a couple years ago that's really helped us to collect a little extra money prior to that investment policy. We could not invest our money in anything basically but CDs. So right now we have $7,213,000 in our investment portfolio, and we have in our operating capital we have $2.7 million. Let's rough it. So approximately $9.9 million in reserves. When you look at how that investment is allocated, right now a lot of it's still in cash and equivalents because we can pretty much with no risk still get about 4.5% on that money. We have 23% in equities, which is basically some type of either mutual fund or ETFs. We don't individually invest in individual stocks. And then we have fixed income, which are basically bonds. Most of that's in a Vanguard BND fund. So if you look at that, we're basically in our last 12 months, our investment income is 4.76% versus benchmark of 1.74. So we are still doing pretty well in our investments year to date. We had an annual third party. We get a third party audit every year with the financial records and internal controls conducted by Forbes Mazars. I forget what they used to be called before, but and it resulted in no finding conclusion. We had no weaknesses or deficiencies, no recommendations for improvements or effectiveness, and no concerns about segregation of duties related to the financial process. So bottom line, County Falls POA remains financially strong and well managed. So now I'll turn it over to Jim.
And that applause, kudos to our finance committee, who does just an amazing job. And kind of an unsung hero, most of you probably don't know, wouldn't recognize him, Joey Tyner, who's our controller, financial director. These guys do a great job of helping us manage the finances. Just fantastic. All right, I mentioned this is going to be kind of a year in review, so I'm going to hit the calendar replay button for a little bit and talk about the weather disruptions that we all suffered this past year and what has happened as a result of that. Helene, none of what is on this slide is new to you. The impact of this unprecedented storm on Constantine Falls was simply massive. Fortunately, it wasn't as massive as some of our nearby communities. My middle son, John, lives just above the Swannanoa River in Asheville. Oh. And they were safe. They saw the power lines falling down by their house. But Suzanne and I were driving along there as late as April, and there were still smashed cars along the road. So we're fortunate. But nonetheless, here in Conestee, many roads were blocked with down trees and debris. The access to our amenities totally disrupted. We were without power, cell phone, Wi-Fi service for days. It was something we've never experienced. Weeks, okay. And unfortunately, some of you suffered some home damage. Hopefully nothing horribly bad, but we also had property damage here on CFPOA property and assets. This was a real eye-opening event, no question about it. And it did reveal our community's vulnerability to such extreme weather, and that extreme weather results have devastating effects in the right conditions. So what are we going to do about that? Well, I'm going to circle back to that later on, or Jim, I can't remember who's going to cover that. We've made a lot of progress on what are we doing to prepare ourselves in the event we have an army. It's interesting, I attended a presentation, I don't remember who gave it, about 3 years ago, and the speaker was talking about how fortunate we are here in the mountains of Transylvania County because we're largely climate change resistant. Not so. It was an eye-opener. Anyway, so what happened in the aftermath? Here, I have to give Jim and his operations crew a lot of credit because they worked tirelessly to bring our community back to normal conditions. And in so doing, they absolutely were unwavering in their service to this community. Many of our people were worried about what their own homes looked like elsewhere outside of Constant Falls. But nonetheless, they were here taking care of us. This crew is heroic, no question. Some of the things they did, and Mike West, our security chief, he and his crew conducted over 100 wellness checks to make sure that we, as individual members of this community, were safe. Everybody was accounted for. Nobody was hurt, at least that I'm aware of. Operations opened up many roads that were blocked by downed trees and debris. We had significant damage to the admin building when a small dam along 276, just past where it looked dilapidated, I think it was a moonshine property.
Where the new firehouse is.
All right, that dam broke. Floodwaters came down and just inundated the admin building. So the lower level had to be totally remodeled.
What a shame.
This is my test in the morning. A landslide on Tusugan Valley court. Does anybody live on this court? Good, I don't have to apologize to anybody for messing that up. But anyway, you saw the landslide if you drove on that shortcut that comes from County Trail to Google. That has been repaired. It wasn't cheap, but it was repaired. The restroom on hole number 5 had a tree hit it. It's really unusable anymore. It's being torn down. The replacement building for that, which really looks sharp, is nearing completion. So all the golfers and the walkers, whoever else enjoys that property will be able to take a stop and have a look. We did extensive hydro seeding of the roadways. That was conducted to limit the erosion because there was quite a bit that we were dealing with. Jim called me. I was over at Jack and Jody Grant's house visiting them, and he calls me and said, "Well, this isn't our day." He said, because we have supposed to be a seepage in the Toccoa Dam. And I just, I met him and Nate Owen, our maintenance director, and his staff out there, and we were assessing it. Here's the good news. It was declared safe. It was just like surface seepage. And the dam is structurally sound. But this crew of ours did the necessary assessment, brought in the appropriate engineers to assess it, to make sure that we and the downstream communities were safe. Fortunately, it was not an issue, so that was awesome. Lake Doxie. Everybody know where Lake Doxie is? It's a fifth lake. We recently, Jim and his crew have drained that and have cleaned out the culverts.
No, we ended up putting a new one in.
A new one, oh, a new road.
How's it?
A new culvert.
That's only 2 days ago. I got an update on it.
And the roadway repair is underway. Now, as you know, we all had a power outage, so.
Oopsie.
Yeah. But he told me, how many of you have you ever called up the utility company to have them check where your telephone lines are before you plant shrubbery and all that? I bet you most of you. And so you got these orange lines all over your yard. Jim told me that those devices to check where those lines are usually only go 6 feet down. This power line was more like 20 feet down, so they never could pick it up, okay? And so that.
Yeah, and when Duke came out and looking at it, when I concerned, like the government jobs, had like 7 or 8 Duke guys are all standing around like this, just looking like, our map doesn't show that there. And you're like, no shit. So sorry for the 800 of you that lost your power for fuel.
As that pond was being removed, I drove by it just to check it out. And you might recall that at one point there was some sort of a pool floaty in there. There was. And of course that was removed a long time ago. But then when I checked it out the other day, there was a canoe down there. I'm going like, wait a minute, that's No, they were just had to get the pumps down. That's what the committee was for. So anyway, so tremendous work there. As you might recall, a lot of our staff were essentially, they didn't have to work, but we kept them whole because they are so important to us. And there was pretty unanimous enthusiasm for doing that, and that's very important. We like to treat our employees extremely well. As Jim mentioned, our total out-of-pocket cost from Helene, $350, $400, somewhere in that ballpark. Now I want to turn the attentions not from away from our operations staff to our residents. And I'm looking at a guy, a good friend of mine back there, who was a big part of this, and that's Bruce Winfield. Our residents helped out in many ways. Helped with tree removal efforts. They assisted maintenance and clearing roads, driveways. Many of you prepared and shared food for those of our neighbors whose homes were damaged or without power. Others opened their homes up for those needing a place to stay. And a fundraising effort was organized. I can't remember the exact number of dollars, but it was a lot. And those dollars went to the employees who worked extra hard, overtime, all day long, to help bring this neighborhood back to a good place. And so it really demonstrates the strength and caring of our community. And this is really what makes Conisty great. A year or two ago, Suzanne, my wife over there, and I were hiking, and we came across Chris Boyd and Renee Avery, first time we had met them. And we were talking about the beauty of Conisty, and they shared a quote with me that I think they might have heard from somebody else. Says, I came to Conisty Falls for the beauty. I stayed for the community. And that's really indicative of who this neighborhood is. And that statement right there is a reflection of that. So what a great place to live, huh? Okay, then we move on to our next disaster. Kind of entertaining for those of you who are around the lakes, because you got to see all these big Chinooks and Black Hawk helicopters coming in. And we still haven't built one for the water.
We haven't built them for that.
I understand we can't either, so. All right, so these wildfires were scary because they were so close. I remember talking to John Hyson, who lives on the south end of Solola, and they could see the flames at night from their property, so that's how close they were. They didn't directly impact Conisty Falls, but this community was inundated with smoke, heavy smoke, and it was, quite frankly, a little bit unhealthy for some of us. So we had a very heightened sense of anxiety, a heightened sense of concern because of this. Because is this going to come and hit us? Geez, they just evacuated everybody south of our property line. Are we next? Well, during that incident, Jim and our operations team maintained close contact with local first responders and provided assistance to them whenever needed. I know our operations group was out blowing roadways on East Fork roads to clear flammable materials off of it, for example. Another big credit to Mike West, security officer here, who has done a yeoman's job in establishing the connections with people like our fire chief, our police chief, and other local responders. Right now, our community is pretty interlocked with a lot of those people, and that speaks well to our relationships and should give us some comfort should we ever have a similar event. Jim did a fantastic job of providing all of us with critical information that were provided to members, because we really didn't have good up-to-the-minute information, but Jim was able to find that. And so that whole purpose of that was to keep the community informed and reassured. And so
Until they try to shut me down.
yeah. That would be a feat. The event underscored the critical importance of effective communications and emergency preparedness within this community. I'm going to circle back to that a little bit later, what that means, okay? And so, in addition to the fire aftermath, we have a lot of other activities associated with our amenities. Jim will speak to that.
Thanks, Jim. So the building we're sitting in right now, the infamous line of "build it and they will come" seems to be true. The Activity Wellness Center, currently we have 1,046 memberships compared to about 120 in the old fitness center. So that's a credit to not only the building, but to Notika and her crew to create the classes and the schedules that everyone seems to be appreciating and very well attended. The pool area renovation was completed. The 2 restrooms, those have been updated. And we purchased a new heater, which is basically twice the size of the heater we had before. When we had 2 different pool engineers look at it, they both said we needed a $1.5 million $1.5 million BTU unit. We'd always been running with the 750,000 BTU for 20 years. So that could have been one of the issues of why the pool was always tough to heat up, especially when the weather got a little chilly. So going forward, we should be able to potentially open the pool a little earlier and keep it running a little later with the new heater. We've gotten a lot of really positive feedback on the new library moving. I know Susan Chauncey, I don't know if we had any of the librarians are here. Any other librarians here? But Susan, thank you for all involved in the project. The space is great. I mean, great natural light, great space, plenty of books and other things to take out. And then we converted the library space to a new, it's going to be a new break room for the employees. One of those rooms will be, anyone who's seen the employee break room is a room sort of like in the back of the kitchen with no air conditioning or heat, and no ventilation really, no windows, no anything. So we're going to move him into one of those rooms, and then the other room will be for the new director of operations, which Jim will be talking about here later in the presentation. On the golf course, we've done a couple things. We've added a hydro wick system to the number 8 green, which was one of the greens on the golf course that was one of the lowest spots on the golf course and was normally at certain times of the year when you got enough rain, was almost unplayable. This system, which is not very expensive to install, is unbelievable actually. Now you go out there like today, after the last couple of days of rain, number 8 green will be one of the driest greens on the golf course. So it's a process that we're going to look to install in some other locations on the golf course because it's very efficient, cost effective, and very unintrusive. It doesn't take up a lot of time for the greens to recoup after installing it. We added a new little pavilion at Ottagai Park right next to the playground for both protection and seating. It's got a little ceiling fan in there as well, so that your parents or grandparents can watch your kids play in the shade. As some of you may know, who came to the quarterly meeting, we had a fire suppression system that failed in the Cherokee room that basically wiped out all of our AV equipment. So we're working with Sonero. Right now the AV company replaced that. We signed the agreement with them. And that should be, when are they coming? I can't remember. Anyway.
Monday is coming for the pre.
So they're doing their pre-install on Monday, but most likely it's still going to be probably 90 to 120 days before everything's back up and running. We did some improvements, added some lighting down by the barn and dog park, because that barn was getting more and more use, especially in the winter, for meetings, and it was real dark there, so we wanted to improve the safety issue there. So that's pretty much an update on amenities, and then Jim can handle permanent committees.
It's not really an amenity, but we also put in new RFID, RDIF, whatever, readers at the gates for better security, and thanks to this man Robert here, who's head of our IT for us, who played an instrumental role in doing that. Little things like, new keep wild signs that look attractive at all of our entrances. I have to mention that because if I don't, TJ's going to be all over me. So there's also a lot of little amenity type things that were done as well. I want to talk a little bit about permanent committees. They're part of our governance structure. We have 8 of them, and they play an integral role in helping to run our community. By my count, this varies by the week, we have approximately 78 individuals serving on permanent committees. Can I get a show of hands, all of you on a permanent committee right now? Thank you very much. I mean, that's doing a great job. In addition to those permanent committees, some of them even have subcommittees. An important one that comes to my mind is the Lake Management Subcommittee. And Jim will talk about some of their activities in a moment. If you were to add up all of the volunteer hours that this structure, as well as the board, puts in serving this community, it's massive. And if we were all being paid to do this, it'd be hundreds of thousands, if not more, in terms of money that we're not spending, but we're still getting the benefit of people trying to drive our community forward. I'm going to just take a moment. I'm not going to mention all the names, but I wanted to put their names up there for you to look at, who serves on our permanent committees. The first column, finance and audit, is actually two committees. Finance and audit, if that's not obvious. Audit's a small committee, it just has Keith Butler and Phil King on it, as well as the board liaison. These slides, by the way, are not necessarily up to date because some is August 2nd, and some people have rolled off these committees effective August 1st, but I kept the names on here as a way of acknowledging the contributions that they have made. So Keith heads up finance and audits. Rick Clark right there. I'm sorry, you rolled your eyes because you really didn't want to be identified, did you? Architecture, environment. Richard Lindgren, I don't know if Richard's here. Okay, he's elections. Facilities planning, our architect in residence, Dan Glassow. Judicial is Susan McCarthy. Natural resources, AKA tree huggers, AJ Longwear. And then strategic planning is now Carl Ristow, third row from the front. Elena just retired. I wanted to have her name up here because she's done a fantastic job and put in tireless efforts in leading the strategic planning committee. Notice that every permanent committee has a board liaison. And also notice that we're putting Jim to work as the ex officio member. He goes to every meeting of every permanent committee. As we bring on a new director of operations, that could very well change. He won't have anything to do.
I wish.
So, once again, I just want to thank all the permanent committee members. Without your help, this community wouldn't run. The board is fed ideas from your committees that we then try to act upon, or at least think about how to put those into place. If you haven't served on a permanent committee, give it some thought. We're always looking for talent, and this community is full of talent. It really is, and so give that some thought. We're going to get into specifics of what certain permanent committees are doing. I'll let Jim cover this and have a listen.
Yeah, you went backwards. Okay, there you go. So the Natural Resource Stewardship Committee, they have initiated a 3-year lake management study with Dr. Troy Farmer of Clemson University. This study will result in a lake management plan with specific strategies for our watershed, our reservoirs, because technically that's what these lakes are, reservoirs, and fisheries management. I guess that's a word. Okay. Obviously, part of that will be some more input on how we can better or more proactively impact the growth of the parrot feather. We've had 2 treatments in Little Ottagahi now. The first treatment seemed to work pretty well. That was the spring treatment. We did that, we put that down, let's say in April. And within that 2-month period, which is the residual time of the product, we started seeing some diminishing of the parrot feather, and even most of it was not coming on top of the lake. It was under the water's edge and it was sort of graying and browning out. So we thought, wow, this is working pretty well. So let's do the second treatment. So we did the second treatment about 12 days ago, and it almost looks like we fed it versus the chemical. I mean, it exploded. So right now you go across that causeway in Little Ottagahi, I mean, it's everywhere. It's out in the middle. So we are looking at next week potentially to do a two treatments, a topical treatment, which is a spray, so we can spray the green stuff that's on top of the water, and then also do the granular as well, to see if we double hit this, whether it'll help. Now the one thing is, right now is the height of the growing season of parrot feather. It likes hot weather and likes shallow water, and that's perfect to what Little Ottagahi is. So, and this is why some of people have asked, well, how come we haven't treated any other area of Ottagahi, especially because it's floating everywhere in Ottagahi. But the problem right now is we're not 100% sure how effective it is, so we don't want to keep spending money that may not be useful. There is another product out that is different and stronger than Sonar, which is what we're using. It's made by the same company, CFPOA. The only problem with it is that it only can be applied by one of their licensed applicators. So even though we have an aquatic license, we can't spray it. Only their people can spray it. So what does that normally mean? More money. And to put that in perspective, there's a lake down in South Carolina that is approximately 2.5 size of Atagahi. And it's cost them so far about using this other application about $225,000 to treat it. So that being said, it's 2.5 times the size. You know, a lot of that is also mobilization, depending on where these guys are coming from. But you're probably looking at 125 to 150 for a lake size of Atagahi. And it doesn't go away with the one shot. I mean, it's something, once you have parrot feather, you talk to any lakes, areas have had it, and this stuff grows even in upstate New York. It never goes away. I mean, you're fighting it, we'll be fighting it pretty much forever, unless they come up with something else that is not on the market at the current time. So anyway, so I don't want to say we're on top of it. We are sort of on top of it, but we're not gaining on it. But we are working on it. We just received, I think, the final forest management plan from Echo Foresters as of Tuesday or Wednesday of last week. I know the Natural Resource Stewardship Committee is going to be meeting Tuesday with Andy, who's the head of Eco Foresters, just to make sure we are on the final and making sure that we are good to go. So once the NSRC has reviewed it and then forwarded it to the board for their review, we will post this on the website so that all the residents can read it and review it as well. Facility Planning Committee. We did have a professional clubhouse engineering assessment done, just because we wanted to get an idea of how structurally sound the structure is, and then also looking at the main infrastructure, electrical, water, sewer, and so forth. And the report came back, and you know, it's an old building, but the reality is everything in the building is working pretty well. The only thing that popped out, and we knew this from before, 2018 during the renovation, our electrical panels are outdated and do not meet current code. It's not required for us to upgrade those, and that's why we didn't do it in 2018, is my guess. But the reality, just from a safety perspective and everything else, especially if we think we're going to be in this building for another extended period of time, 5 or 10 years, we really should upgrade those panels to the new code. And Larry Rourke and myself are working on a proposal now to get some quotes and numbers from our electrical engineer to see how we can do that and the costs associated with doing that. So stay tuned on that. And the other thing that came in on that too is the kitchen. Again, the same sort of scenario. The kitchen's been basically in the same system for now 30 years. The kitchen, then the dishwash room doesn't have heat or air conditioning. I mean, it's a pretty rudimentary system, but again, Larry and I and the FTC are going to start looking at how we could do some upgrades in there, rearrange some things for better efficiencies, and we don't think it'll be a huge cost to be associated with that. Architectural and environment. Rick, do you want me to talk about these? So we just had the new rules and regulations that was passed a couple weeks ago, and they are on the website if you are interested in looking. You will find that they're much easier to read and use. There is now hyperlinks associated with all the rules and regs, so you don't have to read page by page by page to find what you're looking for. If you're looking for something specific, you go right to the index, click on the hyperlink, it'll bring you right to what you're looking for. Again, thank Larry Rourke and the Rules and Regs Committee for that, but I think Jim Bailey is going to talk about that a little more down the road in this presentation. So the important change on A&E perspective is there are now stricter requirements on variance approvals, including new requirements for proof of actual cost numbers when it's claimed that a denial of a variance will have a financial burden. What is a financial burden? $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 when you're building $1 million home. So they're going to be asking for more numbers and more proof of what this variance is needed for. We've eliminated the need for the A, E, and C permit for what they call light trimming of trees and shrubs over driveways or walkways, or when you're overhanging a house up to 15 feet above the ground. I mean, anything over 15 feet still requires a permit. Down trees may remain on the ground, as this is good for animal habitats and soil conditions, so as long as down trees aren't unsightly to neighbors or common areas. And then the new rules provide a greater detail for fences, which are allowed in the community, But the old language was sort of willy-nilly on what that really meant, so they've tightened that up so that if you're trying to build a fence, you can go right onto the new rules and know what kind of fence you could probably build and what would probably get approved. Clubs. That's me, right?
Nope.
Oh, is that you?
Nope.
Sorry. Okay, thank you.
Do you want to do clubs?
No, that's okay.
Just thought I'd ask. Okay, so we have permanent committees, but we also have this club structure. And the reason I wanted to bring them up is, when Suzanne and I were first considering moving here, we were looking for several things. Two of them were like a really financially sound, well-run community, which we are, and ways that we could connect with other people. We saw this club structure, and it was kind of exciting because we didn't know anybody when we moved here, but boom, almost within a week, we started to create friends. A lot of it was through clubs, whether it was tennis or golf or fishing club or what have you. So these are really an important part of our community that add to the vitality of who we are. All the club charters are posted on the CFPOA website, so if you want to find out what they do, there you go. And those charters include the purpose, the objective, and governance approach. That's an interesting word I'm using here. Some clubs provide such governance in key areas of interest to the community. Others just exist for the enjoyment of their members. The craft beer group is certainly one of those. So some clubs that provide this governance structure include the following. I apologize to any club whose name is not listed here. You can write to the CFPOA with your complaint. We'll take care. But the Golf Association, tennis and pickleball, they all have governance of how their areas of interest and focus are run. Certainly the Student Scholarship Committee, the Conisty Falls Fire Auxiliary, the Fishing Club, the hiking crew, also known as trail builders, really, and the trail stewards really own how those trails are maintained and kept useful for all of us. The Kids Club, Elena, I mentioned that. The Library Committee, all these groups are very, very important. Now, we do have 4 new clubs this year, including that we approved the charters of the Conisty Crafters, the Drum Circle, the Square and Contra Club, dance I presume, and the Mountain Choral Ensemble. So 4 new clubs. Now, when we get to the question and answer period, we have a 2-minute time limit for everybody. I just want to give you fair warning right now. I've authorized the Drum Circle to practice outside your bedroom window at 3 o'clock in the morning if anybody goes over that 2-minute limit. I think that's fair warning, don't you? All right. Okay. So very important. Board initiatives. I think a lot of these. Start out with rules and regs. After 2 years of really dedicated work by community members, board-appointed task force, we've had a complete overhaul of the rules and regs. And it's now complete, and it's published. So I wanted to acknowledge this guy right here, our board member, Larry Warford, for leading us on this journey over the past year. Prior to that, Donna Aiken-Colflesh. We also had task force members, including Susan McCarthy, Elena Arbeck, and Jean Rowe. Am I missing anybody on the task force, Larry? I think that's it. And then, of course, all of you provided input to the rules and regs over time. The update involved thorough research, expert input, member feedback, and as you'll see if you haven't already checked it out on the website, really improved organization. We had 2 new rules added. One is the code of conduct, and one is the use of drones. On the former one, code of conduct, that's all about how we as members interact and behave with our staff and employees. And sadly, we've had an incident recently that caused a little bit of concern. This code of conduct is now posted throughout the main property amenities, like the clubhouse, probably here, I know down in the pro shop. If you haven't looked at it, please look at it. It's not uncommon for restaurants and hotels to have code of conduct posted. So this is nothing that's unique to us, but it's very important, okay? All of the documents that are now posted include hyperlinks. Larry did a fantastic job of linking related articles, definitions, relevant state and federal laws within these documents. Some of these links are internal to other sites within Honesty Falls website. Some are external that reach out to government agencies and whatnot. Well, how many of you ever had a career where you worked with international employees? Okay. Well, quite a few. When I was working, I had people in China working for me, and so it was not uncommon for me to have to get up at, not get up, but at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, have what was then the equivalent of a Zoom meeting with people in Shanghai or wherever. And that's what Larry did, because the web developers were where? Pakistan?
Developers in Pakistan.
Yeah. So this was really a difficult work and put in a lot of time and effort. And so Larry and Chris Flynn down in the admin building, a fantastic job that they've done. There's a searchable index by subject matter, also available on the website, allowing easy access to specific articles and related information. Talk about disasters. What are we going to do to be prepared? Well, that's the next board initiative, and that is the creation of the Emergency Management and Recovery Task Force. And it's led by Carl Ristow right there. And he's done a fantastic job with his team to advance our community's preparedness for these kinds of events. You know, we've had Helene, Table Rock Complex fire, and I forgot to mention, we also had a nearby earthquake. It didn't cost any damage, kind of opened our eyes. This task force is, This task force is charged with developing an overhaul of community communication requirements, backup power, and general preparedness / recovery in the event of future community-wide emergencies. A comprehensive emergency plan is currently under development, including incident structure command. You can tell Larry wrote this. I don't speak like this. Incident command structure. But this is the proper way to speak. Communication, staffing support, organization, operational support, control, and linkages to the aforementioned county emergency operations. Under the Living Here tab on our website is a new section, and it's been launched, providing access to prepared bulletins. There have been several. Weather and travel, alerts, video resources, and future evacuation protocols. This is really an amazing website, and I want you to go check it out if you haven't already done this. What has to be a highlight brilliance of marketing, we had our recent disaster day event, which was conducted with community experts right here in this room and outside emergency organizational representatives. We have a retaped and a formative video that, quite honestly, and this is not an exaggeration, replays an eye-opening presentation from that event. It's now posted on the website. I think it's a must-watch video for all of us, for all the Honesty residents. It's titled Living Here, Community Emergency Preparedness. Now, Carl here has spent his whole career in the fire safety business. He knows his stuff. And this is Carl giving us valuable information on preparedness for disasters. Please, if you haven't already done so, go out and watch it. It's like 32 minutes. This guy right here did a great job of creating linkages to graphs and all sorts of things. It's a good video. Watch it. So a community-wide communication network is being implemented to provide reliable information on emergencies. It'll support security, admin, resident connectivity access, and provide real-time information and resources during an emergency. So we are taking a lot of action in the aftermath of Helene Table Rock fire. Who do you think put this graph together? He actually sent me two. I'm only going to show you one. Recall during Helene, we were without power, without Wi-Fi. Unfortunately, I think Sir Alex's mother provided a Starlink update or linkage up at East Fork Road. We didn't have one. Well, the plan is we're now going to have some. And several.
We're gonna have 5.
We're going to have 5, yeah. They're for use by staff only. I'm kidding. Okay, 2 of the Starlinks will be here, and they're going to be this is going to be the Incident Command Center. and one for community connectivity. We'll have one at the main gate, one at the maintenance building, one at the East Fork gate, and I think there's one at the admin building too.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll
We'll have a portable one. You see that big truck? We're not buying a big truck. No, it's just to represent its mobile, that's all. So, but we're gonna have a mobile operations vehicle with Starlink. So in the event of Helene 2, we'll be at least able to reach to the outside community and get important information on what's going on, which we didn't have with Helene. Now, separate from that, and moving forward into 2026, the committee is looking at appropriate generators that we should be putting in place to run this building, to run certain parts of the clubhouse, the freezers, the food storage areas and whatnot. It's something that Keith Butler, who's also on this committee, is aware of, so we're going to be building that into the 2026 budget. I think it's going to be an important upgrade for us to have that. You know, it's very conceivable that we could use this building to house some employees who have to be here 24 hours a day. It's not going to be for all residents. Don't get me, that's not the purpose. But we want to have some way to help our employees who are working to bring us back up to speed, to house, to sleep, to eat, that sort of thing. So more on that later. This is all work in progress. So as a result of these two things, we've had some website improvements. I've already touched on them a little bit, but the new rules and regs are integrated into the CFPOA website. The emergency preparedness section under the living here banner, I've talked about that. Check them out. We're going to get into the favorite subject of the day, short-term rentals. There's no question, this continues to be a very challenging and divisive issue. You know, people are pro, people are against STRs, a lot of people in the middle that just want this thing to go away across the board. Here's the reality. We are bound by the consent order of last August. The board has received, although we're bound, we've received, shared with the community independent, objective, and supported legal advice from Parker Poe law firm that tells us the following. The consent order is likely unenforceable against homeowners who are not party to that litigation. There were 61. Everybody else is not party to that. The courts of North Carolina seek to protect the traditional common law right of a homeowner to lease his or her property, and therefore the language in the POA's governing documents seeking to restrict the right must be spelled out unambiguously. But the no transient tenants language in our fifth declaration would most likely be deemed ambiguous and thus unenforceable for a 1-month lease minimum. So we continue to carefully listen to positions from respective members of our community from both sides. At the same time, we can't ignore the current legal landscape as explained in the memorandum by Parker Poe. But we encourage all of you to once again read that memorandum and the explanations that we've shared. They're quite extensive. And we continue to invite comments, which is very important. We want to be very open and be in much of a listening mode. So we remain focused on minimizing the likelihood of successful litigation, maximizing the likelihood that our governing documents, including the Declaration of Restricted Covenants, will be enforceable if challenged by court of law, and protecting and safeguarding the Coniston Falls lifestyle that we all enjoy to the maximum degree possible. We're really dedicated to working with this community to find a solution. A member informational meeting is being planned, probably scheduled within the month, so that's short-term rentals. My last topic, executive search, director of operations. As I mentioned before, the board has conducted an extensive external search, executive search, to hire a director of operations, also known as the assistant general manager, the position that Lance once held. The search committee is Richard Zollinger, Janet Saucier, I believe she's on vacation with Les, not here, Jim Whitmore, and myself. Now, the candidate we've been seeking will move into the general manager's role upon Jim's retirement. He's made it known, despite my arguments to the contrary, that he does plan to retire at some point in time, sometime early next year. So as a result, the search firm that we're dealing with, Club Resources, has done a phenomenal job providing us with information. They put out a tremendously brilliant digital Facebook that applicants could look at to learn about the job, the position, Constantine Falls, who we are, our culture, our amenities. And out of that, some 270 some odd hits were made on that website. And 15 candidates emerged that were either fully qualified for the Director of Operations, eventually Jim's role, or experienced and might be qualified. We looked at all of them. At the end, we identified 2 individuals. Both were terrific, and we conducted Zoom with interviews with them about 2 weeks ago. Subsequently, one of them really emerged. We invited that person to come to Constantine Falls for an on-site visit. And that site visit included an extensive tour of Constantine Falls that highlighted our community's natural beauty, as well as our amenities, operations. We looked at the maintenance building, we looked at everything. This is Jim, candidate, myself. We also took a tour of the golf course. It was funny because there's a lot of ladies out there going, oh, what are they up to? Jim, who's that other guy? So that's what we were.
He's wearing a jacket.
He's wearing a jacket, yeah.
95 degrees out. But he's from Florida.
It's probably freezing.
Yeah, it's right cold.
We also had his partner, Bree, come in, and she was given a tour of the area by Janet Saucier, looking at Brevard and checking out some potential places that they might want to move. We had lunch with the board and the further interviews with the board asking questions of this person. And after that meeting, we unanimously agreed to offer our top candidate the position of Director of Operations. And they gave me the authority to develop an offer letter and associated terms of employment. I work very closely with Jim on that, and also Club Resources. And that's what I've been doing for most of the past week. So we're pleased to announce that Nathan Freeland has accepted our offer and will be our new Director of Operations. Nathan is currently the Assistant General Manager of the Heritage Bay Golf and Country Club in Naples, Florida. Heritage Bay, what is it? It's a multi-amenity bundled golf community offering a wide range of services, activities, and amenities for members and residents. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound kind of like Constantine? It is. Their amenities include golf, dining, pools, tennis, pickleball, fitness center, and social activities. So most of everything we have, he's familiar with. Maybe not trails, but that's okay. He has a successful track record, particularly focused on food and beverage, events and activities, member engagement, capital and reserve projects. It is interesting. We during our tour, we stopped here in the wellness center. We were downstairs looking at the workout equipment and all that. And there's an individual, I don't know if she's a member or a guest or whatever, but she came up to us and had a concern. And it was that a piece of machine, one of the exercise machines, wasn't adjustable for her size. She was not a very tall person. And so Nathan, Jim, and I, well, show us. And it's Nathan who's engaging with this woman and had a couple minute conversation to understand her concerns. And he says to her, "Thank you for sharing with us your concern. We'll look into that." He's already assuming some responsibility. I was so thrilled with that. It was such a minor thing, and yet it was a major aha to me. So Nathan and his partner Bree will be moving to Transylvania County with an anticipated start date of September 22nd. And more information about Nathan will be shared with you in the coming days. I know Jim just told me that he sent some information that we could share with you. I've just been too busy to write anything up, given the fact that I'm just trying to put together the offer. One other thing I'll share about this is there's a gentleman by the name of Doug Brown. Doug is Jim's equivalent at Heritage Bay Golf and Country Club. And, you know each other?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Him and I have worked for 20 years in the same area.
Yeah. Being from Naples and Jim's from Naples, it's
A lot of talent down there.
Yeah. So Doug Brown sends this text message to Jim and he shared with me. He says, "Congratulations on hiring Nathan as your successor. He is a rock star and ready for the role of GM/Chief Operating Officer," the title they used down there. "And I will miss him greatly here at Heritage Bay." So that's an endorsement from his current boss. I'm really excited about Nathan joining us. The beauty of this setup is that he will enjoy the benefit of being here in this Director of Operations role while also being mentored by Jim for the next
That could be good or bad. But that
next
could be
6
good.
months. No, it'll be good. It'll be good. So I'm very excited about it. We'll have some sort of a community welcoming event at the appropriate time. You'll start to see him come September, I think, maybe sooner. But I'm very excited. I hope you are too. And if you're not yet, you will be.
I think he's watching, so.
I hope I celebrate them.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we get to questions and answers. I just want to remind everybody about the drum circle threat. We have 7 board members. I'm not the most qualified to answer every question, but we have some people here that can. If we don't have the answer, we'll get back to you. But let's open it up. We've got some ground rules. You've seen these before. State your name, member of that, just your address, whatever. 2-minute time limit, drum circle for every speaker so that everybody gets a chance. Let everybody else say what they want to say before you return the microphone if you have more than one question. And let's not interrupt the speakers. So with that, green light, let's go.
You gotta go up to the microphone.
Go to the microphone.
Hello, I'm Liz Fender. I'm a new resident. I just moved in June. I bought the place at the end of March. Thank you. My question, I know I saw an update a while ago. I might have been at the last quarterly meeting about cell towers. So what is the current state of it and when is it going to be better?
So, good news and bad news. So the good news is it's still an active agreement that we have in place with Diamond Power Company. The bad news right now is that only one provider has committed to the tower, which I believe is T-Mobile. Both the tower construction company and the county would prefer or need to have 3 providers that will commit to a tower before they'll put one up, which makes sense because you don't want to just put up towers that aren't being used, especially in an area where we like to worry about our aesthetics of our natural environment, right? So right now, the latest I heard was that they're hoping to have the other 2 providers online sometime this year, mid to late this year, and it would take 6 to 12 months from that point to get. So you're most likely looking at the end of 2026. Assuming that happens, or like we talked about, technology may change within that year too. I mean, more and more satellite is being used. If you're a T-Mobile, I think T-Mobile is the first one to roll it out, where they're using Starlink to allow you to at least use text messaging when your cell signal's out. So I think there's going to be, at least in the next year or 2, probably technology itself will be enough to allow you to hopefully text message pretty much everywhere. But we're still online, but it's just being delayed, unfortunately. And I usually follow up every 30 days with the Diamond Tower to say, where are you at, where are we at?
What about the Starlink?
So the Starlink that we're gonna have here, basically, like Jim said, we're gonna have 2 Starlinks at this building. One for our use, operationally, so that we can communicate with everyone we need to. The second one would be a secondary one for members to be, say, out in the parking lot or wherever, where they can go. All the other ones around the rest of the community would be used for operation, but then the mobile unit, which is a little trailer, that's gonna be, also have 2, is it 2, Robert? 75?
1.
Okay. 1 big screen TV on the outside of that, and we will move that around depending on where we need to be. So one day it might be over at Lake Wantesca, so that outside the community gets to. Next day it might be over at Lake Ottagahi Park, or the park, so people can access it there. So that would be another network that they can connect to and use to get communication out. Then we'd also have that big screen that would give you updates on what, community updates along the way.
But that's only emergency.
That would only be emergency, correct? Yeah.
All right,
All right, next question.
Al.
Hey, good morning, Alan Checo. So two topics. First one, STRs, right?
Mhm.
So if I understood correctly, verbiage on the summary, because it is quote unquote not enforceable the way that it's been written, theoretically, anybody can do short-term rentals at any time until further definition?
No. The consent order says it's a 30-day minimum, so that's what we have to comply with that consent order. The question is, will that stand if challenged? That's the question. So it is 30 days for non-rentals.
Okay, but somebody could challenge it, right? And then you would have to go through another loop of it. Okay, understand, thank you very much.
Thanks, Al.
The second one, if I can, is on the emergency force task plan. I can't remember exactly what the name of it is. So will there be, and the reason I'm saying this is a little bit of context, right? So we've been here about a year and a half. We've made several very good friends, the widows, live by themselves. Sometimes, they come back and forth. Some are permanent, a couple of them go back and forth between here and Florida. Will there be any kind of like a chance, if you would, for those of us in part of the community to say, hey, I'll volunteer to keep tabs on Mrs. So-and-so and Mrs. So-and-so in order for us to be able to do that? And then would that be available to everybody else? So just something to consider.
Go ahead. That's what Jim, I forgot what you called.
No, go ahead, Larry.
Let me try to answer that in two ways.
Use the microphone, Larry.
I'm sorry.
Neighborhood, what is it called?
Is this working now?
Yeah.
Let me answer that in two different ways.
One good way, one bad way.
Yeah, actually, no. Both of them are good. We've got two activities going on in the community. One is the task force that we put in place that has been chartered by the board. We're working on many things to try to provide the means for preparedness. One of the things the task force is doing, and that's why you need to take a look at the website, which is basically new, so look under Living Here, and in there are all kinds of bulletins and notices, and we're going to continue doing that on a monthly basis. Part of that is dealing with how do you prepare for an emergency. So we're trying to educate everybody here in regards to what are the typical national standards, and we're looking at it from a national standpoint and applying that to local Western North Carolina, so that we can make sure that you as resident are prepared if we ever have another emergency, which based on what we've had this last year, the positive tendencies are that we're going to have to deal with it somewhere along the line. So that's phase one. The other thing that we've got going on is a fellow by the name of Hatch is putting together a group of volunteers in the community, and we're going to provide a link on that in the website to a website that he's developing, where he's putting volunteers that are like citizens, and you've seen this in Florida, where they bring people together to do exactly what you're looking for, to provide a central resource of information about local residents, and he's doing it on a block-by-block basis. That is going to be linked into our website. So all of that we're trying to put in place so that everything is prepared before the hurricane season really hits. So those are the two approaches that we're taking. Did that answer your question?
It does.
Hey, John?
Hi, I'm John Gannon. I live on Hyatt Court, and I'm going to raise an issue that I raised earlier. And this year, a year ago, there was a horrific automobile crash at the main gate, resulting in a relative of our lovely bartender Suzanne's sister having her leg amputated. It was fortunate, it was not fatal. But I've had, and I'm sure many people using the main gate, very close calls from people either using the approach from Brevard as a speedway or coming down the hill where it's obstructed by trees. It's still an accident waiting to be happened. And what is the status of the board's and Jim's activities at my earlier request to deal with the highway department to install some kind of safety feature for our residents?
Right, so we contacted the state, that is a state road, North Carolina state road. We can provide a link to the community, because it basically, unfortunately, the way state works when it comes to their roadways is, I don't, should I say what it is? Basically, you have to have a certain amount of fatalities before they will make some type of thing. Yeah, any volunteers. But you can, community members can put in online in their portal concerns about safety. And I'm assuming that if there's certain, if there's enough of them, it may have some impact, so we can provide that link for you to that portion of their website where you can go on the DOT website and file a complaint of safety. Now, you will notice that since we did make that initial outreach, they did put a mirror up on that one location on the curb. So I don't know if you noticed, anyone's noticed that or not? It doesn't help at the main gate, but it does help as you're coming around the corner the other way. So whether they think that was a solution or not, I don't know, but they did put it up. So, but we'll provide that link, because that's what it's gonna take, I think, is more and more people to file complaints.
Hi, my name is Sue Austin, and I've lived here since November of 2020. And at that time, the rules and regs said that the 6th restatement was what everybody was going by, and that's when I bought my property, and that was what I was under the assumption. My house was my primary house. I didn't have it for any kind of investment purpose, but since then, I've gotten married, and now we have 2 houses. We've been trying to sell the house in Coniston for 2 years. And we have upgraded the house inside and outside, made all kinds of remodels. We had 1 offer on a contingent last year, and that fell through because they weren't able to sell their house. At this point, I was trying to make at least some money on the house just to cover my mortgage and expenses of living here by being a short-term rental host. And the whole short-term rental thing was very unclear and how it was handled for the residents of the community. All of a sudden, we got an email stating that, oh, we've decided to reinterpret our language of what was already there, and then they went back to the 5th restatement. So the whole thing has been very confusing to me as a member, and I feel like last year I was here to try to find out something that was going on because the litigation was going on at that point. And since my house was on the market, I was not part of that litigation group because I thought my house would sell, so I didn't need to worry about it. Well, my house still hasn't sold. And I'm now at the point where I don't have a way to make any money on this house. I'm paying my mortgage and all these fees. And I did rent the house in May for 1 day to a mom and her 3 adult kids, and through Airbnb, I'm able to screen the renters, and I'm only allowing 5-star review renters to be in my house. Because I had a situation where I had someone that basically tried to squat. And I don't want to have my house on the market for long-term rentals, even though I have advertised at this point, because I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And so I'm in a situation where I don't have anybody that to me seems to be a safe bet for my house that I've already put all kinds of money into to remodel. I don't want them to wreck my house. And when you are 30 days or more, you have rights in the state of North Carolina. And it's very hard as a landlord to get those people out. So at this point, I'm like, I have a right to make some kind of money in my house. It's my house, I bought it. I'm not here to be an investment pro. I bought the house to live in, and now I'm facing financial difficulties, and I'm still unclear as, can I short-term rent this house as Airbnb to people that are 5-star reviews only, because I don't want to take risks with my house either. I have had no complaints with any of my renters. I was charged a $183 fee for 1 night stay by the board, or I got something that I had to pay, and I did pay it for 1 night stay. And this was something that was not sent to me as a warning. Hey, we found out you're a short-term rental host. So there was no warning involved. I just had to pay this fee. So please tell me what I'm supposed to do.
Sue, as was mentioned, I'm Dave Hunter. As was mentioned in the STR update, this is a very complex, divisive issue. And the board finds itself in a position now where it's bound by the terms of the consent order on one hand, but on the other hand has received independent, objective, supported legal advice that the restriction imposed in that consent order is, number one, if challenged in court, likely not applicable to non-parties to the lawsuit, such as yourself. Number two, that the no transient tenants language is ambiguous and therefore consistent with North Carolina Court of Appeals rulings. Ambiguous language is to be interpreted in favor of free use of the land, in other words, in favor of private property rights. So the board right now is in a position where the association is a signatory to the consent order. We're bound by the consent order. We've sought legal advice. That legal advice has told us that the terms are likely not enforceable. And so the board is trying to figure out what the next steps are. One of the things we've talked about preliminarily in our correspondence with the community is putting this matter to a member vote. In other words, amend the declaration so that, as we have said, will minimize the risk of successful litigation, maximize the likelihood that our documents are enforceable, and will protect the Coniston Falls lifestyle to the maximum degree allowable under the law. Now, I know as I sit here and I say this, that gives you absolutely zero comfort. I understand that, and I'm sorry for that. The board is aware of this issue. We're working through it as quickly as we possibly can, and hope to have some idea as to next steps that we can share with the community. As Jim mentioned in his update, we're planning a member meeting on this matter, hopefully within the next month or so. It's a priority. It has been something that the board has spent inestimable time on because of the complexity and the conflicting directives that we have versus the legal advice. I wish I could be more definitive and more comforting to you that we're going to do something the next week that's going to allow you to rent short term, that I can't do that.
Craig Wilson, West Court. A couple of quick ones. I'd like to thank Jim for his service here over the years and wish him well in retiring.
That's something.
The traffic safety issue. I think one of the problems we got that is under our control is the entrance sign we have blocks your vision when you come out of the main gate, and you have to creep out past it to look to the left to see if there's any cars coming from the Brevard direction. There's also a bush or a shrub that's over on the right-hand side that's difficult to see to see the traffic that's coming from Cedar Mountain. So I would say take that shrub out, bush, whatever. I would suggest that sign be elevated about 8 feet off the ground so that when you look, you're looking underneath the sign and you don't have to creep out by the sign to see what's coming from the left. And that's on our property, that's under our control, and that's a suggestion. The East Fork gate, when you get down to the corner of East Fork Road, we have a small sign, and it's mounted pretty low also. And you kind of have to creep out there a little bit to see past it to see if anybody's coming from the left. So and that's just a wood sign that's on posts or whatever. I'm suggesting that be elevated. And then the third issue I got is my beach enhancement plan that hasn't gone away in my own mind. It's 3 years old.
Yep.
And I understand we had a lot of events the year before, the landslides, the recovery, the Helene, you know.
It's on the list for sure.
It's on the list. The
Definitely.
little one at Toccoa Dam
Yep.
is so gravelly that you can't walk on it unless you got water shoes or sandals or something. And that would be a small one to start with. And if we can fit that in somewhere, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig.
This is the problem. All right, I can talk. I'm a former Marine, so I don't even need a microphone. My name is Bob McGinnis. I live at 67 Osaruga Court. I used to sit up there until like February. And I can't tell you how liberating it is to be on this side of the microphone versus that side of the microphone. I'm gonna probably diverge from the normal thing. I have 12 questions. I'm not gonna go through them because the guy who runs the drum circle lives across the street. So I'm gonna read this. I have hard copies. I will provide it to the board, and I prefer you guys thinking about it and then submitting your answers to the members in writing. Okay. First, not counting funds attributable to the conclusion of the litigation, how much has the POA spent on legal fees since the 2024-2025 board assumed office last August? Number two, how many law firms were contacted and interviewed? What was the criteria set for selecting a firm? For those firms not selected, was a synopsis of the interview and the resulting rejection of the firm provided to the other members of the board? If so, can they be released to the members? If no synopsis of report was constructed, why not? Has the POA, number three, has the POA legal representatives, Ward and Smith, been apprised of the guidance rendered by Parker Poe and allowed to provide comments to the guidance? If so, can the members be provided their comments? If not, why was this not done? And if this is the case, does that mean now that Ward and Smith is no longer representing the POA? If new litigation arises, who will represent the POA? Number four, in your discussions with Parker Poe, did the attorney at any time discuss the obstacles and challenges any litigant would be confronted with in their attempts to overturn the consent order and settlement? Can you share that with us? Number five, does the board hold that Parker Poe's guidance is dispositive? And if so, has it determined the impact on the enforceability of many other rules and regulations and requirements previously implemented by the board and its committees that are not found in the founding documents? Things like color boards, landscaping, home sizes, outdoor fireplaces, variances, etc. Number six, it appears that the board has made it clear that they believe Parker Poe's guidance is equivalent to law. Personally, don't think it is. Thus, can we assume that anything not directly traceable to the original documents cannot be enforced? It's sort of similar to question number five. Number seven, has any consideration been given by the board to the impact of growth in STRs to the secondary mortgage market and its implications to Conisee Falls? Number eight, if restricting STRs within a private HOA is against NC law, how has Pinnacle Falls and Zirconia just changed their declaration to restrict all STRs to 30 days? They used Van Winkle as legal counsel, that's the law firm, as their legal counsel, so maybe getting their opinion may be helpful. Van Winkle, by the way, was the law firm whose attorney, Ethel Mannerheim, was representing the plaintiffs against the POA. Which is interesting because she was also the mayor of Asheville, and she was instrumental in putting restrictions on STRs in the city of Asheville. Whiskey Creek also has recently restricted STRs. There are a number of HOAs, POAs that have successfully put restrictions on the operation of STRs. Has any outreach been done by the board to confer with those HOAs and POAs who have successfully implemented restrictions? If yes, can the members be provided with the results of the outreach? If no outreach was done, why not? Number nine, do you attribute any of the slowdown in the Conisee Falls real estate market to the resurrection of this entire issue? I do believe that most of it is a national phenomenon, but I'm just wondering how much the disturbance caused of resurrecting this problem again is adding to that problem. Number 10, is it still a policy that all letters to the board must be responded to within a reasonable amount of time? Is that still the case? I just say that because I sent a letter to the board several months ago. I never got a response. I've had a couple people come up to me and say they have submitted letters to the board, they have not received responses. Number 11, has the board received any intent to sue correspondence from an attorney representing a Conisee Falls resident? If so, what was the basis of the threatened litigation? Number 12, Did the board initiate and direct the conduct of an independent risk assessment by competent members and/or an independent agency to assess the legal and financial risk of supporting the settlement versus disposing of it? If so, can that be shared with the members? If that risk assessment was not done, why was it not done? Number 13, will there be a formal response to this list of questions that will be distributed to the members? There's a bunch of copies.
I thought you said there's only 12 questions.
Well, I added one. Anyway, there's that.
Tim, do you want to corroborate that too?
I had something in mind, I'm not sure where I'm gonna go now. I feel terrible for the woman who's stuck in the situation she had with her house. Oh, sure. I feel terrible for her. I feel for her back, and I think there are many people that I know whose house has been sitting on the market for months at this point in time. 4 years. I think that the solution is simpler than perhaps it need be. Is that I believe that we are still as a community obligated to file the 6th restatement that was voted on in 2017 validly. There's been no substantive or even close to that legal reason as to why it can't be filed. At that point, we would be operating at least closer to within the law of restrictions for short-term rentals. And then if a future vote were to be had to change the 6th from its 2-day minimum, mind you, we were operating under the 6th until 2023 when it was reinterpreted. Why not file the 6th, free it up for everybody to rent their houses, as they should be allowed to rent their houses according to North Carolina law. And if you'd like to have a vote of the members after that, feel free. But if the vote fails, we're defaulted to where we should be. The 6th restatement applies. The 6th restatement was passed. She can rent her house as she should be allowed to rent her house. Everything has been done properly and correctly by the law and by the obligations of the board. And if you want to have a vote, go ahead and have a vote. Obviously, the vote needs to be in line with North Carolina law. I don't know why this isn't complicated. This was all started by a board action that wasn't allowed and could be undone by a board action. You could go to the plaintiffs right now and say, do you want to get rid of the settlement agreement? We're going to go file the 6th. And there's no more binding documents for anybody. You need the plaintiffs and you guys to agree on it. I don't think there's any complication here. I think it's just a solution that's simpler than people want it to be. I understand there's people that just that don't want short-term rentals. That's fine. You can hate them. You can despise them all you want. You're feel free. There's bad things about short-term rentals. Okay. But there's been no bad things demonstrated here by short-term rentals. And I find it interesting that a former board member who declined to answer hundreds of questions from plaintiffs over the last 2 years is sitting up here asking for questions from you guys that I'd love the answers to as well, but he denied me answering them for the last 2.5 years when he was on the board.
Are you pointing to me?
I'm pointing to you.
Okay, fine. Look at me if you're going to point.
Okay.
Go ahead, what's the problem?
The problem is.
Hey.
Stop. We're not gonna get
This is
into
a
a
public
debate
meeting. This isn't an individual.
So
I'm
stop.
talking.
You guys can talk after the meeting.
Go ahead. Is your 2 minutes up?
So there you go. I think the answer is simple. I think that we can find ourselves on sound ground utilizing the documents we currently have in place that have already been voted on. And that we don't have to work with ambiguity going forward. Thank you.
Okay. We have 2 drone circle properties so far. A reminder, keep it crisp. You're smiling like, I'll do that.
I'm gonna try.
All right, thank you.
So, under our restrictive covenants,
So what's your name, Byron?
I'm sorry, Damien Vickery, and we have owned for probably 10 years and lived here the last 2.5.
Thank you.
Under our restrictive covenants, this board is responsible to represent everybody, and I recognize that's extremely difficult to do with the STR topic. However, I believe that removing STR restrictions is going to put the entire community at risk. We already understand that saturation of STRs causes problems with the ability to finance through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and others can make us non-warrantable, meaning we can't use conventional loans. We have problems with refinancing and other barriers. Secondly, insurance carriers view STRs as high risk, And communities with high STR saturation often face higher premiums, exclusion from claims, and even denial of coverage. And so this could impact everyone in the community. It's very well known, 2023, board made, and took the action to seek legal opinion on our Fifth Amendment. And based upon that, communicated with the community and clarified issues, including the enforcement of the 30-day minimum rental period. As an outcome of that, the legal action that followed, the judge's consent order upheld our Fifth Amendment and the 30 days and provided relief for the 61 plaintiffs. And so from my perspective, it's reasonable that this issue should be settled. We have the Fifth Amendment, it restricts us to 30 days. You can be as short as you want in those 30 days, but you can do one every 30 days. You can do 12 a year. And that's the expectation. I think it's a waste of our time and money to continue to spend our community money on this issue. And I'm sorry. And does the board recognize, I keep reading in different points, that the board is trying to mitigate the liability and potential for future litigation? Do you recognize that if you pursue putting in place the Sixth Amendment, which the vast majority, a large percentage of the community has changed and not here when that was voted upon, and that there is a majority of our community who's in favor of the restrictions, that the board puts the CFPOA at risk for litigation from the larger community who does not want the restrictions removed? I recognize you're caught in a catch-22, right? But I think we have what we have in place, and I don't see a reason to keep spending money and legal fees on trying to go change our current governing documents. In closing, I'll just simply state that fear of litigation is not an acceptable reason to change our governing documents and alter the foundational premise of our HOA being an owner-occupied community. We should not do that just because we're afraid of getting sued. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments.
I'm Bonnie Kelly. I live on Okanoa Circle. We bought our house 20 years ago and moved here permanently 3 years ago. I don't know who is keeping the 2-minute time limit. Okay? You need to make sure somebody is doing that. You don't need to have anybody do mine because I'm not gonna be that long. But I do wanna let you know that either, I believe, you put all of the sponsored clubs on your list, or you don't put any. I'm a member of the Bocce Club and a member of the Mountain Readers, which were not included. So, but I don't think, it bothers me that my 2 clubs that I belong to are not on the list, but don't put any on or put them all, okay? I do notice that in the last bulleted point on one of your slides, there was the topic of pool, and it was not addressed. So I would like to know, I was under the understanding that both were going to be done, this building and the pool. I understand that it was not going to be done at the same time, but we really don't know what is happening. And so I want to know what's the total picture.
First, I appreciate your feedback on the clubs. My purpose was only to show those clubs that had some governance kinds of activities, but your comment is fair, and I apologize if it's, you're upset about not having all the clubs listed. Pool, yes, well, we're hoping that we can move forward on the pool. As you know, we've spent a pretty good amount of money on our emergency reserve fund over the last 2 years, not just Helene, but let's recall there was a major landslide, and that has drained down the emergency reserves. So the finance committee looks at that, is their recommendation so far. Let's hold off on major capital expenditures until we can refresh it. We're in the process of doing that now. I'm anticipating don't hold me to this, but as we get into the 2026 budget, we're at the very least gonna be looking at pool area, aqua park design. We need to go out and see what that's gonna look like. So it's not a dead issue. It's certainly one of the more important capital projects of the future that we're looking at, so.
I just like it to be a part of a 5-year plan.
Oh,
Yeah, so-
Or whatever,
so in the-
you know,
Yeah.
say it's a part of the 5-year
Yeah.
plan.
So in the 2026 budget meeting, which will be in October, that we get to the membership, there will be actually a 10-year plan as part of that budget presentation that will show what we think the amenity fund will be doing in the next few years and what projects will be happening within those years, and we'll have a plug year in for all those projects such as a pool. So you will know there will be a time frame associated with the pool in the October presentation, which isn't that far away, 2 months.
Yeah.
My name is Nancy Patrick Sharsick. Sharsick was my married name. And I have lived here for 30 years. I have served on the documents committee the 3 times that they've been presented. When we first moved here, North Carolina did not have a law governing POAs. In the late 90s, they did, and there were 3 people involved. Gordy Cadu, some of you may have remember the name, he was involved in a golf course. Anyway, 2016 was the last time we had a review of the documents. And at that time, there were several of us. And we got to the point where we saved the rentals till the last. And then the board asked us to, it got to be July, to present to the community where we were, and they would take up the rentals after that. And of course, they never were. At least in 2017, the document that we presented is the one that is now in force and on file down at the courthouse. It's been 2016 since the documents were reviewed. At the same time, we reviewed them with the North Carolina law and with this tax law from, which is the federal tax law, which governs us. I recommend that it is time to have a committee to review the documents in conjunction reviewing with the laws, and then present it to all of us for our approval or disapproval. Rentals are a problem, but it can be resolved, and it should be resolved with all of the owners within Coniston Falls. But I am 88, soon to be 89, and I will not serve on that committee again.
Thank you, Nancy.
Gary Ramsey, we're going to, since our house hasn't sold over the past several months and it's been listed, we'll be here for at least 5 years come October. And talking, and going through that process and talking with the realtors, trying to get input from a number of the community, they do believe that this issue, not that they're taking a position on it, this short-term rental issue has an adverse effect on the ability to sell property in Coniston Falls. And it's not that they're pro or against the idea of that, but they feel that it is public knowledge that this has been an issue for Coniston Falls for a number of years. People can read about it in the newspapers, people can see publications on it, and they're concerned that what's gonna happen. It's the uncertainty that certainly involves the whole nation at this point, of what's gonna happen next. So people are just sitting on their hands and doing nothing. Therefore, we're taking our house off the market, at least for a few months, to see if things settle down and work themselves out. Now, here's a question for you, and maybe people aren't unaware. I've been told, and I'd just like some clarification, that when people rent their property, short-term, medium-term, long-term, 3 days, 1 month, 6 months, a year, they pay some amount to the HOA, POA, you call it here. I come from an HOA community, that's right. It's like, but POA, that's just fine, okay. So I'm curious, and I don't know why it should be any secret, that you could tell us, if somebody had a 3-day rental, how much would they pay the POA? If they had a 30-day rental, how much would they pay? If they had a 6-month rental, how much would they pay? And if they had a 1-year rental, how much would they pay? And should there not be a difference? Should there not be a difference? And maybe there is, so perhaps Jim or.
Yeah, so the answer to that question is every rental, no matter what the term is, 2 days, 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, all pay the same. Because the fee is associated now with the application itself. So the 183 that lady was discussing on her unit, that would be the same, whether it be for 2 days or 30 days or 60 days. It's a one-time fee of $183 for each rental period.
Hi, my name's Marnell Madison, full-time resident here for about 2 years or so. First, I just want to say thank you to the board for all the amazing work that you guys are doing. As was commented before, you are volunteers, and as I heard one of our fellow residents comment over here, it certainly can be a thankless job. So it seems, at least recently, all our talks or discussions are derailed by STRs. And so I just wanted to say thank you for leading us forward as a community. And the other thing I want to comment is just this contentiousness of this STR issue. And I don't know if we have a lot of next door users here, but basically 2 next door dialogues had to be shut down because they became so contentious and because certain individuals were really quite hostile on those sites. So just those are just 2 comments. But as far as the maybe observations, one is this the consent order and the discussion about the consent order. And I haven't actually read it, but it was signed off on by the Honorable Steve Warren in a court of law. And so there's a consent order, and you guys are adhering to the consent order, understandably. And then we have this opinion by Parker Poe. So we have an opinion by an attorney or a firm, and they're saying things like, well, this likely wouldn't stand, and this possibly wouldn't stand, and it's just an opinion. I mean, if we went to Johnson and Smith, we potentially would get a different opinion. So a lot of people are hanging a lot of credence on this particular opinion, but if you actually look at the references at the bottom of the opinion, Parker Poe references 6 cases, 4 of which are unpublished cases, meaning that they're not precedent-setting cases. They're unpublished. Okay, you do have 1 Supreme Court, and you have another one. So I just wanted to kind of point that out, as everybody is stuck on this Parker Poe, but we've gotten other, that's how law works, is that you get different opinions based on who reviews the facts at hand. And then the last comment is, there was an assertion that STRs are prohibited by North Carolina state law. I heard that commented this morning by someone, that STRs are prohibited by North Carolina state law. And my understanding of case law and reading about this issue, that is not the case. That short-term rentals are not prohibited by North Carolina state law. And as was commented by this gentleman here, Mr. McGinnis, we have evidence, there's quite a few communities in the state of North Carolina that prohibit short-term rentals. And I mean, clearly you have to do it correctly and procedurally and unambiguously and so forth. And it's very tricky unless it's in the original documents. But I just wanted to clarify that it seems like a little bit of, a little bit of disinformation when you say that they're prohibited by the state. That's actually not the case, as I understand it. Okay.
Did you understand me to say that?
No, it wasn't you, Dave. It was somebody else who was one to speak.
Because No,
it wasn't you.
No, I didn't hear that. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, no, but maybe I misheard, but my understanding from somebody that talked this morning was that they commented that they're pretty, but that's not the case. So,
Okay.
so thanks for all the time, and again, thanks for the work you're doing on this.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
First, thank you. And as I stated before,
Thanks, Rick.
I truly understand the difficult position you're in.
Can you give us your name?
Jane Mollitz. And Sue, I wanted to stress that there is still flexibility for owners to lease to guests and fellow association members for occasional rentals once every 30 days, which is 12 times a year. My concern is with allowing unrestricted short-term rentals. There are a few points that I would like to bring up, and I will keep it brief, but I apologize, 2 minutes is not reasonable for such an important matter. First, the July 10th email to the community presents a legal opinion as undisputed fact, and the conclusions offered are speculative on how the courts would likely rule against restrictions. Next, peppered throughout the governing documents is a consistent effort to preserve the character of a primary owner-occupied community. The Conisty Falls governing documents reflect an intent to limit short-term, non-owner occupied uses. Below are some phrases taken directly from our documents. Purpose for which the community was formed: to preserve the character of the community as a residential community of owner-occupied homes and by preventing community from assuming the character of renter-occupied. To comply with the eligibility requirements in the secondary mortgage market, the community shall be substantially owner-occupied. Preserve character of Conisty Falls as a residential community of low-intensity use with minimum disturbances from move-in, move-out. No transient tenants permitted. Leasing is defined as regular occupancy. The documents contain numerous references that prohibit or regulate timeshare-like uses. The references indicate that the community did not intend to allow high turnover occupancy regardless of the legal title held. A short-term rental pattern of rotating guests using a home while the owner is absent is functionally equivalent to a timeshare. Homeowners who purchase based on recorded documents which emphasize owner occupancy and prohibit transient tenants are entitled to rely on those terms.
I know you said 2 minutes is not very long, but try to be crisp. Thank you.
Thank you. Further, citing a few of the guiding values that the CFPOA upholds: spirit of community, volunteerism and community outreach, forward-looking and forward-thinking to ensure the community remains desirable, safety and security of the community and all residents. These are in direct conflict with the short-term rental community. The board has only provided a legal opinion and not relevant financial information to the community. Material facts is information a reasonable homeowner would consider important when deciding on how to vote on a CCR amendment. Information on the financial impact of unregulated short-term rentals to every homeowner in the community is a material fact. Permitting unrestricted STR activity introduces substantial financial consequences that could jeopardize the value, insurability, and financing options of every home in the neighborhood. Unrestricted STR policies and high non-owner occupancy rates are recognized as a direct financial risk, a direct financing risk, and HOAs, POAs could face the real potential of non-warrantable status, jeopardizing access to the secondary mortgage market. This could result in a lack of conventional FHA, VA loan home availability. Homeowners may face, I'm almost done. Refinancing or HELOC increased rates or barriers, and limiting financing access reduces the potential I'm sorry, this has never been shared with the homeowners.
But don't make it an.
There is also a financial risk of increased cost and availability for liability insurance for the community. Insurance carriers recognize elevated risk of STRs and high non-owner occupancy rates and may raise premiums substantially, exclude coverage for claims arising from STR-related incidents, or refuse to underwrite policies. The secondary mortgage market and liability insurance risk are clearly financial material facts. Informed consent requires disclosure of all material facts, both legal and financial, to allow homeowners to properly evaluate the amendment's impact on their property.
All right, I'm gonna give you like 15 more seconds, because this is like
Okay.
going on for.
All right, I'll end it here. I take informed consent very seriously, and we must have been thinking on the same wavelength, that I have brought a petition calling for a special meeting which will address the facts or the information that we would like covered. There is a petition that is in the back, or you could see me afterwards to sign. Thank you.
Thank you. Morning, Bill.
Morning. In deference to the drum circle, and not wanting to be awakened by Jim Bailey at 10, I had addressed a letter, which I'm assuming went and was received by the board individually and administratively. Would that be correct, Jim?
Yes, everyone, I think.
So rather than to go back through that letter, I would just ask be made part of this record and considered by the board individually during this next month period before we have this more, I guess, dedicated meeting. I would like to say, first of all, my wife and I bought our house in 2013. We had rented since 2007. And the reason that we're still here and looking forward to continuing to be here was best summarized by Jim Bailey and all the things that he and Susan chose. And what we find in honesty we would like to see preserved. I'll have a couple of questions that I'm going to read, but I want to make one comment about the law of North Carolina, as Dave Hunter has repeatedly articulated in the Armstrong Supreme Court case. And it said in the Supreme Court case, and Ward Smith, the lawyers who represented Conisty during the litigation, had written a white paper or an analysis of what the status of short-term rentals and amending declarations, which was addressed in the Armstrong case. But the Armstrong case, the only real Supreme Court case in North Carolina, which ironically started over about a 75-cent monthly assessment for a light at their entrance, if you can believe that. But the court in Armstrong, going through how you look to the reasonableness of an amendment and a restriction, and how you go about analyzing your documents, it gave examples of when an amendment would be reasonable and why, and would conceivably therefore be valid. And I'll quote, this is, although it may be reasonable to restrict the frequency of rentals to prevent rented property from becoming a motel. Now, curiously enough, that case came down in late 2006. Our Fourth Amendment, the restated documents of Conisty were actually completed and adopted 3 years later. And that's when we got the language dealing with leasing and rental for the first time with an attached lease, and we got the timeshare language. So within this 3-year span, somebody said at Conisty and went out and got legal counsel, because these are very complicated amendments. There was a reason for it, and one could speculate that it was following the Armstrong's Supreme Court decision by implementing these in order to prevent, and as used in our language, it from becoming a rental apartment complex. So taking the language of our Fourth and then carried forward into the Fifth, which has been a record since 2016, unchallenged. I had a couple of questions that I posed to the board, which we can deal with, I guess, in this upcoming meeting. But the questions that come out of the language, I'll quickly read and ask that y'all address this at your meeting. What has the board done to determine the intent of the fourth and fifth restated declarations and the issues addressed regarding leasing and rental timeshares? So I assume that we'll get a report on this next month. In other words, has it gone to the law firms, as it looks through its own documents and its own files and the prior board members and the emails? There's got to be a pretty significant paper trail in recollection when the board and the community adopted the fourth restatement because of the significance of that language. Sort of a question already asked, but why did the board engage Parker Poe and did it request proposals for other firms when it had been represented for a number of years successfully by Ward and Smith, who rendered this white paper, which is attached to my board communication, which has a completely different substantively analysis of this issue. The third question was, has the board verified the impact of eliminating short-term rental restrictions or on the eligibility requirements for financing of homes and lots in the mortgage loan market and is impacted by the requirements of secondary mortgage order? That's written into our documents that is a factor. So I assume next month there will be some sort of expert opinion, whether it be a banker or somebody involved in the secondary market, is going to say this is what you can do and can't do if it is in fact an issue. As the board engaged, and this sort of goes through some of the other comments today about trying to sell a house or whether it may or may not be an issue, has the board engaged in expert opinion or researched the impact of eliminating a restriction on short-term rentals of less than 30 days and how it can and will affect resale values and refinancing markets? And lastly, has the board evaluated the impacts of investor-owned properties and the community involvement, which is what we have emphasized with all our committees and boards and what everybody's done? The committee and community involvement in Coniston and the future strategic plans and budgets as we go forward as a community. And I hope all of these things will be fully addressed and that there will be a solution. I think there are some solutions that aren't completely black and white. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Okay.
No, thanks.
I'm sorry?
I said thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, looks like we've come to the end of our time. I know the board's going to meet and election of officers here shortly, but I appreciate all of your attention, comments. You certainly have given us feedback, and that is what we're in the process of receiving. So with that, thank you again. I hope you all have a great weekend.
We're probably setting out next week.